So let's start from the beginning. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon,
Like we had this
everybody.
in front of us the whole time.
Like we had in front of us the whole time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to
There's Master again.
Empowerment Through Awareness. This week's topic is power exchange. So every day this week, we're going to talk about some aspect of power exchange or energy exchange. Power exchange. Sorry, this is power exchange. And today we're going to talk about defining it. How do you relate to it? Who are you as a dominant and who are you as a submissive? That's the question lineup for today. Hey, everyone. So we had talked about this Tuesday night was last night. Tuesday night about, because usually at the Kinky Conversation call, we've been going over all 7 questions in that hour to sort of get our feet wet a little bit. And so I think we all agreed that the definition of power exchange was one person agrees to submit to the activity and the other agrees to be in control. One person leads, the other person follows. That was, I think, the mutually agreed upon, and all of it being consensual, was the way we defined power exchange.
Well, within the context of BDSM, but
Yes.
there are power exchanges that aren't consensual that exist.
Correct. Yes. They're in politics, they're in work, they're in all kinds of places, right? Where somebody's in charge and somebody has to follow because that's just the structure. And that's what you have to do. There's places in the world where even from a class sense, like you can't like in the United States, we're upwardly mobile. If you're an employee now, you can become a boss if you want to. So you do have some control over where you end up in the power exchange in the work environment, but there are places in the world where you can't even do that. So power exchange exists in a lot of places.
Yeah.
Outside of having nothing to do with BDSM.
I forgot to do the little swipe for the...
Yeah. So, feel free to chime in with your experiences around power exchange, where you find them in and out of the lifestyle.
So what's the
them.
question that we're on?
We're on define power exchange. How do you relate to it?
Okay. Is there any research on this?
Do
you want to pull
something up?
Yeah, I'll do it on here.
Okay. So, how do I relate to power exchange? I relate to power exchange in a lot of different ways. I became aware at some point of power exchange, and then at a difficult point in my life, I became aware of power differential, which is another issue of a type of power exchange where consent is not involved. And that was very eye-opening for me to understand the crucial difference that consent plays in terms of power dynamics, power exchanges of any kind. So I have some power exchange relationships in the lifestyle, and I have power exchange relationships outside of the lifestyle. I'm a child to a mother. I am, I work for myself now, so I'm my own dominant. But I've worked in workplaces before where I've been both the boss and the employee. And so I have some degree. I have individual relationships inside the lifestyle. I also have a spiritual sense of dominance and submission, right? My life is dependent upon the maintenance of a spiritual condition where I understand that the universe is more powerful than me, and I submit to the power of that, to the will of that power, right? And that may or may not make sense to people outside of that context, but it's no different than when people are submissive to their religions or submissive to the habits and rituals of their religions, right? Like in Islam, the goal, or you're expected to pray to Mecca 5 times a day, and that's not something that is optional if you follow that faith to that degree. If you're Catholic, I know the older women in my church would go to mass every day, mass on Sunday, or at least mass on Wednesday. Confession, communion, all of those rituals and rites are expected. You are in some ways submissive to the rules of the church that you belong to, which I think at its nature, the intention of which is to be sort of in service to however you understand God or the power that is the universe. But I know that relationships can get that messed up. And not relationships, religions can get that part messed up. So that's some of the ways that I relate to it. Who am I as a dominant? I'm a mama. I'm a boss. I'm an event owner and producer. I'm an educator. And in all those spaces, I am dominant. I lead, people follow. And so those are some of the areas where that's really clear for me, where it is I'm dominant.
So I'm pulling up some information, and it says, what are power exchange relationships? And it says, some of these relationships strive for a total power exchange, or TPE as it's known, in which the submissive partner consciously yields control of significant domains of life to the dominant partner. Such relations include several prominent subsets that are based on different roles. Then it's a long-ass writing. Clearly it's a study of some sort.
Right. So when you said that last part you said, were you referring to like master slave and dom sub, or?
Yeah, that's
the different iterations of power dynamics, the relationships that exist.
There was something else I had up here. And then there's 5 types. There's going to be a ton of different lists out there as I'm coming across them, and a lot of them say the same things in different languages. There's a power exchange where, as equals, most of the relationships that exist today are considered equal relationships. This means that each person has an equal decision-making right. Essentially, this means that the couple takes turns being the lead. It can be during bill paying or sex or any of these housemaking roles. One leads and the other follows, but it's seamless, really. Both parties feel that they are giving and receiving equally, and that is how communication and honesty develop.
In an ideal world, I agree. I think a lot of relationships do that, but maybe not as easily as they make that sound.
Yeah.
Relationships struggle to do that. Relationships do that, but maybe not as easily as they make that sound.
Yeah.
Relationships struggle to do that. They do relationship, even the ones that are aware of the power exchange. And I talk about that too when we're talking about it. Like in most what we consider vanilla relationships, right? Like whoever brings home the income is the one that gets to be in charge of the finances. They're dominant in that realm. Whoever takes care of the household is dominant in that realm. Like, one wouldn't dare tell the other how to run their business, even though both of them are doing their business for the benefit of both, or the whole family, as it were.
Yeah. Then there's, here it says male and female led, and I'm going to change that to masculine and feminine led. Mm-hmm. Unlike their dominant counterparts, a masculine led vanilla relationship does not have defined roles. Instead, it carries an unspoken protocol, much like the 50s style housewife and husband. The woman is subservient. The woman is subservient, not necessarily submissive to her husband in all things. It is, however, a delicate balance between being in a masculine-led relationship and one seen as oppressive and abusive in today's modern society. And then there's the feminine-led relationship. In a FLR, the female is considered the leader. In progressive feminist society, this is seen as a welcome sight to the previous male-dominated world. Society sees a female-led relationship as empowering to both parties and to move forward. It's established that the feminine female makes the female makes the decisions in the relationship. It could even take the reverse 50s household-like feel. And I think a lot of the artwork that was prominent, that's still out there today, with the mistresses and the dominatrixes, with the men on their knees and stuff like that. Right. Then we have dominant submissive. The DS relationship is one of defined roles where one is always the dominant and the other is always the submissive in the relationship. One difference of this type of relationship and the vanilla counterparts is that there usually is an erotic counterpart to the roles, one that helps spice up the relationship. This type of relationship may or may not participate in BDSM or domestic discipline. The other noted difference is that there is never a relaxation of roles, where one party or the other may switch, which is more likely to happen in vanilla relationships.
That's an important part, I think, too, to just to recognize that there's plenty of places and people in the world where power exchange exists and BDSM or kink doesn't happen. It's not part of that relationship, and yet power exchange very much is.
Yeah, and you'll definitely see power exchange way more often than you would any type of BDSM before that's even introduced. It's just in the energy of. If you take it back to the more traditional households, the more religious households, right? There's a heavy influence of power exchange in those types of settings too. Mm-hmm. Then we have master slave, and now I'm reading from submissiveguide.com. Right, so this is a perspective, one's opinions on what this is.
Right.
Master slave, considered a form of total power exchange. An MS relationship is one where the slave completely surrenders to the will of the master. Different from the DS relationship by the stigma of consensual slavery and its stronger service based. An MS relationship is not unlike a DS relationship on many levels. A slave may not have right to voice opinions or provide input of any kind in decision making. A slave may also be commanded to do things that submissives can negotiate. It's all about flexibility or roles. Master and slave's roles are the most rigid in their opinion.
I was going to say, at the end of the day, this is up to any two people to negotiate and navigate however they want.
And what's cool is it comes into benefits of defined roles. That's the next paragraph.
Okay.
And considered a form of power exchange, the greatest benefit that relationships with defined roles have is that no one is left wondering whose turn it is to lead. Granted, I rarely have heard of a fight directly related to roles, but I have heard them about a purchase that wasn't agreed upon, a decision that was made without the other's input, and even choices where it comes to children. In a defined roles relationship, it's a lot easier to know who decides what and how the outcome will play out. No one is left questioning if this bill got paid or when a new jet ski ends up in the driveway. Another benefit to defined roles is that it can help enhance a relationship because the parties would work in a smoother fashion. Each knows what is required of them and performs their duties for the betterment and enhancement of the relationship. What's funny is there was a woman that used to work for you, and her and I sat down and spoke one time, and she was talking about how much her and her husband were fighting. Now, in the space, she was a mistress. And at home, she was in her role of submission, right, to her husband because that's what's expected. And, we spoke a little bit and we spoke about culture and background and history and stuff. And I asked her, I said, who makes the decisions at home? Well, I do. And it's like everything she was telling me defined, as from where I was sitting, a female-led relationship. Except the guy was having conflict with his role in it because they didn't acknowledge a power exchange. What they were acknowledging were traditional roles that weren't working for them. And when I said to her, and ultimately him and I got on the phone because he wasn't happy with my input. You remember that?
I do remember. I don't remember the person, but I remember this back and forth.
And I said, and we spoke on the phone. I said, dude, listen, if you just did what your wife said for the next 2 weeks and see what happens, because from where I'm standing, this is what I know, because they both affirmed it. Mm-hmm. And it's like if you just stop resisting the flow of this, see where it goes for you, because you don't. And I said to him, I said, because you're not the dominant one in the relationship. Simply by the facts that have been stated, this is everything she does. These are all the decisions she makes. And you're pushing up against what's expected of you to make whoever proud, versus the reality of the power exchange within your relationship. And sure as shit, he did it for 2 weeks, life got better, and then he got cocky again and fucked it all up. So it's like, it's not easy, but it's like,
especially when the power exchange that wants to exist naturally flies in the face of the stereotypes that everybody's raised with, right? Cultural stereotypes, the gender stereotypes about who's supposed to be in charge and who's supposed to follow. Like when the innate thing doesn't match that, it can be conflicting.
The way I see it is there masculine and feminine that are defined roles in it? For me, no, absolutely not. I think whoever has the clearer picture should be the one leading. Or in the process of this power exchange, like, for example, let's say I'm new. I'm going to put this in a kink BDSM setting. I'm a new person who's wanting to learn how to be a better top and more dominant in my relationship. The person I connect with has more experience than me. The submissive has more experience than the dom, and they have more experience in power exchange and the technical application of all of it. I'm new, they're advanced.
Right.
Where does the dominance power come in that, right? So it's like, when we define what is dominance and what is submission, a dominant, and we're going to go into these later on in the week, but is also someone who's teachable. A dominant knows when it's time to be a student. And to allow the submissive to lead within this context is to learn, to build up your skill set, to build up your confidence, so that when it's time to take the lead, you have the confidence to take it. And it doesn't push back on your role of a leader or someone who's able to create safe space for a person to find their natural. I want to call it natural resting space. Right? Okay. When you when all is said and done, and you're sitting in the room, and you don't have a worry in your mind, and there's nothing to think about, someone leads and someone follows. Like that natural resting space of, that's, I gotta write that down. I've been looking for that language for a minute.
While you're doing that, my attention got caught a little bit ago on subservient versus submissive. So I looked that up when we were talking about the 50s model, right? Subservient and submission are similar words that mean to be compliant, obedient, or willing to submit to others. However, subservient can also mean to be useful in an inferior capacity or to consider your wishes as less important than others. Subservient can also imply a cringing manner of someone who is very aware of their subordinate position.
So hold on. Okay.
All right. That's subservient. Let's see where.
And there was some comments here. 1 second, I wanted to get that up. I love my submission to my higher power. Yes, my entire life first focuses on my submission to my purpose, mission, and pleasure to the collective awakening. My highest calling, source energy is my dominant. Dude, that's exactly, what was that? Kinky Alchemist, that's exactly, that's my language right there.
Yeah.
That's a great distraction, subservient versus submission. So many people think it means the same, it doesn't.
Yeah. So just different things like the useful in an inferior capacity, which is, I think, the way we think about it in that 50s housewife thing, right? Like, and I don't say that's a good thing, because I don't think inferior and superior, I don't like it, but that is how that word is defined and used.
But there is subservient and there is submission.
Right, absolutely. And so submissive can also be inclined to timidity or lack of confidence, You might reply as someone. So there's a lot of dictionary definition.
Submissive can also mean inclined to timidity or lack of self-confidence, for example. You might describe someone's reply as submissive. And this is where I would inject the knight and the queen. Right? The knights are stone cold killers, man. They're out there with swords chopping it up. And they're submissive to the queen. And are they subservient to the wishes? I would imagine so. But it doesn't mean they lack self-confidence.
No.
Right? And
No.
that's the thing, my thing around submission and people who say, I'm a submissive. It's like, where does it come from and why? Well, I like to help people. I like to do this. I like this. Like, are you distracting yourself from something? Is it that you're looking for self-value and affirmations? Like, what is it that needs to be filled in the submissive role? For me, I want to be a knight. Right? I want to be able to say, I can do this for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if I took the word inferior capacity, it's like, all right, I need you to go downstairs and set up for the event. And the inferior capacity is, I need to do this so that he has the energy to do that.
Right.
Right? So it's in the pre-production of the event where, is it in an inferior capacity? Because, I mean, granted, I do a lot of inferior capacity shit too, right?
Right.
I'm down there cleaning and sweeping and mopping, and to me, it's not a superiority thing. It may be, and I'll say only hierarchical in the sense of progression, right? This comes first, then this comes next, then
The
this
order
comes,
of business.
The order of business.
Right. Because there's nowhere to teach if there's not a clean space to teach in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I really now when it's, and this is just from my holding space and teaching people about submission, it's like, in the context of BDSM, people die doing this stuff. And it's like, if you want to be submissive and you want to submit, or you want to be subservient, or you want to experience submission, what is the value of the safety that you are entrusting this other person with?
right. Well, that's why we have everybody do everything from both sides, because otherwise, how do you know what safe is? Right. Especially from the S side, right? If you just expect the D type to know what safety is and how to be safety, and you have no idea, then you really are essentially putting yourself at risk. It's incumbent upon you to understand. Because at the end of the day, I don't care what side of any slash we're on, we're responsible for ourselves. At the very end of the day, I'm responsible for myself as a human being and my existence on this planet. And if in that I choose to engage consensually in a power dynamic where I give over my follow to someone else's lead, I've still made that choice.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody did that to me. At least not ideally. I mean, unless we're talking about, some terrible parts of human history and places where people don't have choices, but that's not consensual. In our world, we talk about consent, in which case I'm being responsible for me, because and we help people to be more responsible for their choices, because it's that thing about consensual kink. Like, you can't really consent if you don't know what you're consenting to.
Not only consensual kink, but conscious kink.
Right.
Because consensual falls under the conscious kink.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mindfulness, safety, consent,
right,
intention, right? There's a lot.
Yeah. And both sides are responsible for that, I think, was the point where I was trying to go, simply to say that, when people say, I want to be submissive, I want to experience that, et cetera, to try to do that without the responsibility that comes from knowing what it would mean to be with someone safely, what does safety look like? You're sort of abdicating your responsibility to yourself to ensure your own safety.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can trust my dominant all I want, but maybe they don't know what some things are about safety, right? Like, I can't blindly assume that they're going to know all the things there are to know, especially the things that impact my personal safety.
And where are they along the line of their own self-awareness and development
Mm-hmm.
on these things? Are they the type of person that can say, I don't know?
Right.
Or do you feel like they're trying to peacock and bravado?
Well, because a lot of in the community, or in the public spaces in the community, in the play spaces, etc., a good dominant looks like somebody who is skilled at modalities, right? So you go into a place and they look the part and they're wielding toys and, you know, a mop,
They
whatever
got
we call them. They got all that going on.
They got the kilts on and the
Right.
flip flops and the
Kilts.
flogger attachments for the belt. They got all the gear.
They got all the stuff, and they seem to know how to use it. And so if you were walking into the community in this, I want to be a submissive, and I want this submissive experience without enough knowledge or experience, you could see somebody like that and not know enough to know that they maybe have not done any introspective work. Maybe they don't know enough about themselves. Maybe they don't know any of those things. They just know how to look good and play with some toys. But if you don't know what you're asking, if you don't know what you're looking for, then you have no way of knowing.
It reminds me of this guy I used to work with. He was in the Air Force and he was part of security forces. Now, when you hear security forces, do you know anything about the Air Force?
A little bit, not much.
So when you hear security forces, what do you think?
I think of, like the guys in the uniforms with the guns and the boots, like security forces.
Right?
Right.
Like high speed, like
Yeah, like they're,
take guys and take names.
Like Navy SEAls.
Like Navy SEAls.
Yeah, like
there
Navy
we go,
SEAls.
right? Like
Yeah,
Navy
like
SEAls.
that.
So
Security forces.
Security forces is actually MP, military police. Right? Except it sounds cooler. Security forces
sounds
right?
cooler than military
So-
police. Only because we've seen enough movies about military police at this point to get the idea.
So he also, like, I was in the Marines. I was a firearms instructor in the Marines. I can handle a firearm here and there pretty well. He shows up with his AR-15. He's got all of these gadgets on it. He's got the scope and he's got the flash. He's got all types of stuff. And it's a pretty awesome piece. I'm like, wow, dude, what was his name? I want to say LeBoy, but that's not it. It starts with an L, though. I'll remember. And we go to the range and he shoots. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you hitting? Because he had all that stuff and it's like, you don't know how to use it.
Right.
Like you're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
And that shit's dangerous because you represent yourself like you have a particular skill set and awareness and the ability to convey this information honestly. But you're not, because I'm watching you in your fucking kilt and flip-flops.
Right. Now we're
Wildly,
back to the BDSM analogy.
Wildly
right. Yeah.
swinging these floggers around.
Yeah.
And the way that you're talking to the person, the way that you didn't negotiate with the person, doesn't reflect on the image that you represent.
Right.
So it's like, it comes back to this question, why this question is so significant. Define power exchange. You sit in front of someone that you've connected with in the community. Define power exchange so that you can see their level of awareness of definitions. And even if they fumble around with the words a little bit, because no one ever sits down and says in a conversation, so define power exchange, right? We're too busy talking about the roles that we want to be in, as opposed to getting to know the person's position on it first.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big question because it shows you awarenesses and it shows you blind spots. And a person's...
Yours and the other person's.
Yours and the other
Yeah.
person's, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think that's important too, to be able to say, I don't know, on both sides, right? Like on either side. So.
Yeah, we have... that's why we have these kinds of chats to help the next generation be smarter and safer. Also ourselves, because listen, we sat down to do this mentorship program, and listen, I've been doing this for a minute. I'm Master Joshua. We sat down and we hit this first question in the group of 14 of us, and I started hearing people's tellings of it, and I'm like, wow, I don't know jack. And I know a bit. And then to see how much more there is to learn, it'll never stop growing. It'll never ever stop growing.
No, with any luck.
Yeah.
Right? With any luck, you stay teachable for all your life.
I have a nose hair that's sticking and tickling my nose.
Yes.
Thanks, TikTok. Let's see. It's like walking around with a black belt with no knowledge. Yes.
Those
Yes,
systems
Donald.
where they just promote you.
They promote
with
you
your
by
belts
attendance.
with no skills.
So that was an awesome dive into, and that's just one perspective of power exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, there's the definition of power exchange. Did we get that definition?
Let's see what they have to say here.
I'm gonna go pluck that thing. there's a definition of power exchange, and it's going to be like 1 or 2 sentences. And then there's how does it relate to you? For like myself, a lot of the dominant roles that I've been in, I've been put in. Joshua, can you help me? Joshua, can you lead me? Joshua, can you show me? Joshua, can you teach me? Right? And it's like, okay. A lot of my dominant roles came through facilitating safe space as well, where a person isn't particularly my submissive, but they are submissive to me in regards to, I trust him, I'll follow. And my desire for submission, it's there, and I think we were talking about this last night. As times progressed, I would absolutely still love to submit, and I do submit in different ways when it comes to people's purposes and goals. It's like, if Kat tomorrow says, I want to start singing again, well, how do I support getting you there? Right? And my job is to follow you through your course and walk with you through things and give you my inferior support to your singing, right?
One way of looking at it for sure. So in BDSM, power exchange is a broad term for anything that involves people with differing levels of power. Be that master slave, dominant submissive, top bottom, owner pet. In all of these relationships, one person abdicates their power to the other.
Mm-hmm. I like how Vix put it. If you think you've learned it all, go back to the beginning and start again because things change. Dude, that's how the intensives and all of our programming works. It's like, it's new information to you every time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've gained something, you've adapted, you've evolved.
You come back around even to the same set of questions as a different person
every time.
When you've been through it one time already or a second time already. I mean, we have people who've done our intensives 4 or 5 times, and they're not the same person that they were when they started, and all for the better. So it's really a pretty amazing process. So essentially, power exchange is more rigidly defined. Couples discuss and negotiate who has what role and what that role looks like to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like the emphasis on the part where the individuals engaged in the power dynamic get to say what is true for them, right? You know, like, because I know a lot of people. I don't know a lot of people, but I do know some people that are in like 24/7 power exchanges in their home. And they are made to feel like they're lesser members of the community because they choose not to engage in BDSM.
Really?
Yes.
Not us, not close to us.
No, not close to us, but I've seen it happen in other places in my travels where, you know, an older couple in particular, a couple that have been in dynamic for a very long time, they don't like, somehow their seat is a lesser earned seat at the community table because they don't engage in kink or BDSM play. So therefore their dynamic must not be as meaningful or as...
That's dumb.
It is dumb, but it's out there. I mean, stereotypes are out there. And so I think that the important point is to let people have all of the, you know, all of what comes with their ability and rights to make their own decisions and to find their relationships for themselves.
Keep on.
And that one is equally as valid as another, even as they all look slightly different, you know, one to the other.
So this is my MS tattoo. Karma designed it. And the reason why it has the arching single line as opposed to the one on the side is for flexibility. Right? If I try to remain rigid in my position in power exchange, that's domineering.
Right.
That's not dominant.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, I don't know if we covered that in the definition last night. Rigid is part of that definition of domineering, but rigid is definitely part of it.
But that was like the concept in this person's writing around MS and how it's rigid, defined rigidly. Mm-hmm. I guess it is to the extent of I'd have to like really boil that shit down. What I say, I have the final word.
Yeah, but you have a way of being in your MS dynamics where you recognize the strength of the person on the right side of the slash, and you you yield to that. And you, I mean, because I heard the part where it said earlier that, like, in the MS dynamic, like, the slave doesn't have the right to make decisions. And that's not how you practice it. That's not how it goes on in our world. And if that has MS looks for one couple, that's great. It doesn't have to be that way for every couple.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tailored MS per dynamic. Exactly. Right.
Everything's tailored to each person.
Exactly
it's like,
right.
You can never take a process and just stamp everyone with it.
I mean, because all you end up doing is saying everybody that doesn't do it the way I do it does it wrong. Really. Which is just silly. If you think that the only right way to do it is the way you do it, then that just implies that any other way of doing it is wrong.
No, I wouldn't say maybe this is the way that works best for me.
And then you're in the realm of differentiating, where, any one couple is meeting their needs and granting others to do the same for themselves.
Because I'm sure there's people who judge the way I handle leather and BDSM and power exchange. I mean, they can judge from the sideline because look at what the fuck I'm doing, right?
Exactly.
But it's there has to be flexibility. There's no one true way.
Right, exactly. And the world would be boring if it was in any realm.
So who am I as a dominant? I think I'm the reluctant dom. There a lot of my power exchanges I didn't pursue. Majority of them I didn't pursue. And they were connections of circumstance. Guide me, help me. I mean, granted, we had some intense connections, but that wasn't an MS thing or a power exchange thing. It was an energy thing. My things are always energy things at first. And then it's like, how do we feel within these ranges? Like acknowledging the tone, the energy of the relationship. And then as that evolves over time, adapting to that. And I think as a dominant, my whole relationship with it is like, I just want to walk with you. I want to support you in your goals and you support me in my goals. And in some cases, I'll sit on the side as you navigate an obstacle, and in other cases, we'll walk through it together. But
well, I mean, even from the standpoint of, that reminds me of like good parenting, right? Like, as the dominant, if you want your submissive to be a stronger person and a better person, then they have to struggle with some things on their own. You can't just do everything for them or tell them how to do everything if they're gonna stand on their own 2 feet as human beings. But that all depends on, I guess, what the defined goal is.
Yeah.
Right? Between the two people. If the two people believe that both parties should get to be their very best selves, including having the confidence to get through life with skills, and then you have to figure out a way to do that works. And I personally, my opinion or my personal belief is that people have to be given the freedom to struggle.
You have to.
Like, you can't tell me everything I have to do. You have to sit with your discomfort while I struggle, because that's the only way I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you're a D type, it can be frustrating to watch your S types struggle, make mistakes, hear your directions and apply them incorrectly, because that's the best that they can do at the moment. Like, you can either micromanage the crap out of that and just make them feel bad, or you can tolerate what that feels like, understanding that it's a process, right? People learn, I always say this, it takes 10 times for somebody to learn something new. It's not just a matter of being told and you got it. It's like it takes, on average, 10 times of hearing something, doing something, practicing something before you actually get it. And people miss that, right?
Yep. Yes, and all you can do is sit there and watch them as a D-type because they have to learn.
Yeah.
But
I know, I'm like, what's coming after the but?
As a D-type, you're there to support and build back up.
And I think that's the important thing. There's such a difference between support and building up and criticizing and tearing down in terms of a person's overall ability to function and learn and grow. when I'm supported and I feel like I'm held and I can do more. I feel like I can look upward and I can achieve more. When I feel like I'm being looked down on and I'm being like I'm unable to. I just can't. And for me, there's a big difference. So the there to support and build back up are really important.
I can't yield to a micromanager. Yes, fix. That's
Right?
solid. That's
Right?
solid.
Exactly, because if you're going to micromanage it, well, then just do it yourself.
There was another tab here. Oh, there's a lot of tabs. Oh my God, how many tabs are in this thing?
Oh, and it depends. They stay open until you close them.
There was some. Oh, that's why. I think I hit the wrong one. Okay, it wasn't this one. Let's see.
Give me your expectations and let me show you how I will fulfill them. It's a lofty statement.
I like that, Lisa. Tell me what you need done and I'll do it my way, but get same results. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone that's just joining us.
Yeah. That's all very real stuff to me. The idea of trusting that people can, even if they struggle, right? You know, I use that example of when we were at the gym all that time ago, and my whole life believed that I couldn't kneel, I couldn't squat all the way down, and you pushed and pushed, and I kept trying to insist to you that I was physically unable to do it. And you said I was wrong, and I thought, who are you? You don't know me. I've been in this body all my life. And then you pushed and pushed, and then lo and behold, one day, it happened, and I was shocked. And I still can do it. It was like, I don't know what happened, what mechanism had to get pushed past. Do you know?
It was probably the way your hips weren't moving.
No? But somehow you thought I could do it.
Well, you could see because it's the way you wouldn't move your hips.
Yeah, well, I mean, so sometimes there's that kind of pushing that's a benefit to push, right? And then sometimes, like, I was never going to get that without being pushed. On other hands, though, there are times when, you know, having a task or learning a new skill just requires struggling with the learning process, struggling with the learning curve, right? I remember when I tried to learn how to ride a bicycle. I had training wheels for a really long time, and ultimately nobody could help me. I just had to do it and do it and do it until the day came that I could hold the balance on a two-wheel bike. You know, no amount of my parents holding the bike was going to get me that balance. I had to do it on my own, and I had to struggle with it, and I struggled a long time with it. Ride and fall, ride and fall, ride and fall, ride and fall, right? Until the day I got it. And so, you know, and I remember I think that it was probably apt to say it made my parents uncomfortable after a certain point in time because nobody was watching me anymore. I was just doing it on my own because it was the only way it was probably uncomfortable to watch me struggle so much, but there was no other way for me to get it. And then came the day that I did.
So who are you as a submissive? I like to think of it as I stated earlier, capable. Mm-hmm. Able to,
like the knight
to the queen. Mm-hmm. Able to, I'm there for a reason, I'm useful, and I'm here at your service.
Yeah, I like that. For me, the submission is most evident in my relationship with the power that I understand in the world, right? And that has to do with like prayer and meditation. And I was really estranged for a long time. I have a very embodied relationship with the power that is when I am in the space I need to be in. I communicate very clearly. I can communicate and listen and get a sense of guidance and have a very grounded feeling. And in that dynamic is the promise that if I let go of the outcome, I will always be okay. And that has been my life experience for 30 years. The only times I border on not being okay are when I take back the wheel, when I decide I'm going to run the show, when I decide I know better. right? And there's a way of living in service to the universe. There's a way of living by doing the next right thing and letting go of the outcome that lets me stay in a good relationship with myself and the world and the power that is the universe to me. And so that is my primary submissive relationship. And I feel really fortunate because I just recently got it back. It was like the phone was disconnected for a while. And it's recently reconnected, and it's very comforting. So.
You know what's not comforting?
No.
Because your comb isn't there.
It's behind the BJ's thing.
Oh, you're hiding it?
Oh, no.
I was looking for 2 days in a row now.
It was in there yesterday. Thank you.
So, we have 12 minutes left.
Yeah.
We thought this would be a relatively easier question to go into, but it's like everything else. It's very deep and wide, in where we can go in that conversation.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I mean, I heard myself say it last night, and I really do agree, especially in the week of the covering ceremony on Saturday, that a lot of my dominance comes in the way I serve the community and the way that I hold space for people and to do things. And one tends to think of service as being submission, and in this case, it's not. In my case, it's a part of the expression of my dominance. And it feels good to say that.
Yeah, I like that. I see my service, my submission as service to, very similar to what you said around my beliefs and my practices and being the knight to myself, I guess.
And the knight to me when I'm
the knight to you,
and when I'm stepped into the role of queen.
Yes, all the time, Mama. All the time.
Yeah, okay.
You're the best. No, but when I say it like that, submissive to me, it's because I know that by the practice of what I believe to be true, it would only benefit me in who I am, what I can do, take care of the property.
Yeah.
Right, you are the property of your purpose, of your higher purpose.
Yes. Well, I mean, all the stuff that we listen to and stuff, like, you know, even like the body is the vessel, like our existence here is to, you know, sort of shepherd that experience, right? Is in service to.
I forgot who I was talking to about tattoos. And they were like, why would you do that? Like, it's whatever traditional conservative perspective they were coming from. Right. I was like, you're right, it is my vessel. It's my passport. It's what gets me moving. It's what
and
tells
it's mine
my
to
story.
decorate.
And it's my way to express what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And they heard it.
Yeah, well, you know. I mean, when I converted to Judaism, I had to make a big deal with I had a tattoo. I had a small tattoo at the time, and, you know, I was ushered in even with my tattoo. Of course, now I have lots of them, so if God wants to have issues with it, God can have issues with me later.
So let's see. Safe travel, Starship. I'll check the DM for sure. Thank you so much. I would have to ask my M and my friends. I love to serve both sides of the slash in those aspects. Combination of both, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's that funny story we told about you being at an event clean. We were pinch hitting, right? This couple came in from out of town, and you were running around all night, like cleaning up dirty cups and blah, blah, blah. And then they asked to exchange FET information, and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm Master Joshua. And the guy went, what?
Come again?
It was pretty funny.
Yeah. But I enjoy seeing things work. I enjoy seeing things move. I enjoy seeing things succeed. I enjoy contributing to the greater purpose. And I guess that's where I'm in service everywhere I go.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, we both are that way. I mean, I started out in this lifestyle showing up and saying, how can I help? The people that are attracted to us that we collect are the people who show up and say, how can I help?
How can I help?
And I don't even have to ask, right? The people who I have to like get after to do stuff are not our people.
Yeah. If I have to ask you to help,
right,
you're not there to help.
Right.
I guess you are. In the way that you want to.
It's different though than the kind of people who just show up and by their nature are looking to be helpful.
So, we still have now the fucking big question. So for the folks that come in with the mindset of I'm a submissive, I'm a dominant, what do you, through your experience or your own perspective, what do you think that it says about a person's relationship with power exchange?
That it's not terribly nuanced. That they don't. I mean, the people who come in and they're like, "I want to be this."
This is what I want to be.
Right. There's just a lot of conversation that has to happen, right? Because there's probably a lot that they don't know about it and about themselves. That's what that tells me. If you lead with that when you come into a space and you lead with, I'm a submissive, I'm looking for a dominant, like you're shopping for one, it tells me that there are things you don't know, both about the lifestyle and yourself.
You know what I'm going to start asking? So what does a dominant look like?
Well, they're 6'2", like, exactly. It's like,
what does a dominant look like?
Right?
What are you looking for?
Exactly.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's going to be a fun one. All right. So tomorrow's question.
What are some examples of dominance and submission? So I'll be